Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving deep into the story of one of the most relatable and, dare I say, misunderstood figures in the Bible, the Apostle Thomas. Now, when I say Thomas, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For most people, it's Doubting Thomas, right? It's this image of a skeptic, a man who just wouldn't believe without hard evidence. And while that's a huge part of his story, it's not the whole story. In fact, when you look closer, Thomas emerges as a figure of incredible courage, profound loyalty, and ultimately, unshakable faith. So, let's peel back the layers and get to know the real Thomas, the apostle who went from doubt to declaration. To really understand Thomas, we have to go back to the beginning. His name, Thomas, actually means twin in Aramaic. The Gospel of John even gives him the Greek equivalent Didymus, which also means twin. Now, the Bible never tells us who his twin was, which has led to all sorts of fascinating theories over the centuries. Some ancient traditions even suggest he was Jesus' twin brother. While there's no biblical evidence for that, it's an interesting thought, isn't it? It adds a layer of mystery to his identity right from the start. Thomas was one of the 12 men Jesus handpicked to be his closest followers. This wasn't a random selection. These were the men who would walk with Jesus, learn from him directly, and eventually be sent out to change the world. Thomas was right there in the inner circle, witnessing the miracles, hearing the parables, and being part of this incredible, world-altering movement. He wasn't an outsider. He was a core member of the team. One of the first moments where Thomas's true character shines through, and it's a side we often forget, is a moment of incredible bravery. It's found in the Gospel of John, chapter 11. Jesus gets word that his friend Lazarus is sick, and he decides to go to Judea to see him. This was a hugely risky move. The other disciples immediately freak out. They say, "Rabbi, a short while ago the Jews there tried to stone you, and yet you are going back." It was a legitimate concern. They were walking into a death trap. But what does Thomas do? He doesn't shrink back in fear. He doesn't try to talk Jesus out of it. Instead, he turns to the other disciples and says, one of the most courageous lines in the New Testament, "Let us also go, that we may die with him." Think about that for a second. This isn't a man defined by doubt. This is a man defined by loyalty. He was willing to walk into certain danger and face death, simply to be with Jesus. This is Thomas the brave, Thomas the loyal. He understood the risks, but his commitment to Jesus was stronger than his fear. This event shows us that his later doubt didn't come from a place of cowardice, but from a place of deep, personal investment. He had already pledged his life. Of course, we can't talk about Thomas without addressing the famous event that earned him his nickname. It happens after Jesus' crucifixion and resurrection. Jesus appears to the disciples, but for some reason, Thomas isn't with them. When the others tell him the incredible news, "We have seen the Lord," Thomas's reaction is raw and honest. He says, "Unless I see the nail marks in his hands, and put my finger where the nails were, and put my hand into his side, I will not believe." Now, it's easy to judge him for this. We can sit here 2,000 years later and call him a doubter. But let's try to see it from his perspective. His whole world had just been shattered. The man he had left everything for, the man he believed was the Messiah, the man he was willing to die for, had been brutally executed et sine Italiano. He had felt the crushing weight of that loss and despair. Imagine the trauma and the grief. It's not that he didn't want to believe, it's that it seemed too good to be true. His logical mind, his grief-stricken heart, couldn't just accept it based on someone else's word. He needed a personal encounter. His doubt wasn't a rejection of Jesus. It was a desperate cry for Jesus. He needed that personal connection to heal his broken heart. And what's so beautiful about this story is how Jesus responds. A week later, Jesus appears again, and this time, Thomas is there. Jesus doesn't scold him. He doesn't shame him. He meets Thomas right where he is, in his doubt. He walks up to him and says, "Put your finger here. See my hands. Reach out your hand and put it into my side. Stop doubting and believe. Jesus offers him the very proof he asked for. He invites Thomas into his wounds, into his suffering and his victory over it. This moment is the turning point. Faced with the risen Christ, with the evidence he so desperately needed, Thomas doesn't just believe, he makes one of the most powerful declarations of faith in the entire Bible. He exclaims, "My Lord and my God." This isn't just an intellectual agreement. This is a cry of worship, of total surrender and all. He was the first apostle to explicitly call Jesus God. In his moment of greatest doubt, he found the deepest certainty. He went from "I will not believe" to "My Lord and my God." It's a powerful reminder that our questions and our struggles don't push God away. In fact, they can often be the very path that leads us to a more profound and personal faith. Jesus then says something that speaks to all of us who have come after. "Because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed." This wasn't a rebuke of Thomas, but a blessing for future generations, for you and for me. Thomas's honest struggle paved the way for us. His story is included in the Bible for a reason to give hope to everyone who has ever had a question, a doubt, or a moment of uncertainty. It validates our own human experience of needing to wrestle with our faith. But the story doesn't end there. What happened to Thomas after this encounter? This is where it gets really incredible. Ancient church tradition tells us that when the apostles were deciding where to go to spread the gospel, Thomas was assigned a region that no one else wanted: India. Accounts say he was initially hesitant, but he eventually embraced his mission. He traveled all the way to the Malabar coast in what is now Kerala, in southern India, in the year 52 AD. Think about the sheer scale of that journey in the 1st century. No airplanes, no modern ships. It was an arduous, dangerous, and incredibly long voyage. But Thomas the Brave, the man who was once willing to die with Jesus in Jerusalem, was now willing to cross the known world for him. According to the tradition of the St. Thomas Christians in India, who are one of the oldest Christian communities in the world, Thomas was incredibly successful. He preached, he performed miracles, and he established 7.5 churches. He converted many people, including high-caste Brahmins. He wasn't just a fleeting visitor. He laid the foundation for a vibrant and enduring Christian faith that continues to thrive to this day. His impact was immense and long-lasting. However, his mission was not without opposition. Tradition holds that his success angered some local leaders. Around the year 72 AD, Thomas was martyred for his faith near modern Dutch. He was speared to death while in prayer. The man who once doubted the resurrection ultimately gave his own life as a witness to it. He sealed his testimony not just with words, but with his blood. From a loyal follower, to a skeptical doubter, to a bold confessor, and finally, to a martyr on the other side of the world. What a journey. So, when we remember Thomas, let's not just remember him for one moment of doubt. Let's remember the whole man. Let's remember Thomas the loyal, who was ready to die with Jesus. Let's remember Thomas the honest, whose questions led him to a deeper truth. Let's remember Thomas the worshipper, who made one of the greatest confessions of faith ever recorded. And let's remember Thomas the missionary, a courageous pioneer who carried his faith to the ends of the earth and paid the ultimate price. His story teaches us that it's okay to have questions. It's okay to struggle. Faith isn't about having no doubts. It's about what you do with them. Thomas brought his doubt directly to Jesus, and Jesus met him there with grace and love. His journey shows us that our deepest moments of uncertainty can become the foundation for our strongest convictions. He is the patron saint of all of us who have ever had to wrestle, who have ever needed to see for ourselves. And his life proves that a faith that has been tested and questioned can become a faith that truly changes the world. Thanks so much for watching. If you found this story of Thomas as fascinating as I do, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the figures that have shaped our history. Let me know in the comments what you think about Thomas Do. You relate to his story. See you in the next video.